manager Frank McDowell, who was assigned to lead a joint venture between his company HWZ and a Japanese company XMM in Tokyo. This case study delves into the cultural differences between US and Japan, and also the unique challenges that Frank will face in managing a team with both American and Japanese members. The first key player in this case study is Frank McDowell, the American manager leading a joint venture. Tina McDowell, Frank's wife, who struggles to live a life in Japan. Liz McDowell, Frank's oldest daughter, whose education and socialization were concerns for Tina. Jim, Frank's former classmate and a successful consultant in Japan. Mr. Hayawa, the president of XMM. Mr. Hayawa's grandfather, the influential former president of XMM. Tom Fox, the chief executive at HWZ. The setting of the case study takes place in Tokyo, Japan, and it focuses on the American manager who becomes the managing director of the joint venture in Japan. It examines the cultural and professional challenges between that he will face, including the Japanese business practices, managing a diverse team, and his family's difficulties in adapting to live a life in Japan. It also highlights the complexities of an expatriate life and a cross-cultural management. Thank you. That's all from me. Next up,
Okay, now we are talking about what are the social, economic, political, cultural, and leadership issues affecting expatriation and students in the case study. The economic issues in the Japan, everything like food, basic needs, and small education can be expensive. The company give package and make life easy, but it's forget to include something other than government costs. Then in the political issues, corporate governance issue arose from shared decision is between HWZ and SMI. Traditional practices especially those kept by the retired president, indirect negotiations and strategic implementation. France faced uncertainties related to Japan regulations and corporate governance when starting and managing the business. I will pass to you.
So I'll be moving on to the social and cultural issues that affect the acculturation process. So firstly is the cultural adaptations of Frank. Frank and his family members are actually struggling to adapt to the Japanese culture, where Tina has found it difficult for her to adapt to buy the familiar American products like the maple syrups. And there are language barrier for her, and the cultural issues difference has made her being stressed out. And while for the Franks, the Japanese culture practices in the workplace is totally different from the US company, where they practice indirect communications and value the importance of harmony. And initially, it is challenge for Franks to understand and navigate the indirect communication here meant by the facial expression and the body language of the Japanese colleagues. And moving on would be the family well-being and work-life balance. Tina is dissatisfied with her life in Japan, and she is worried about her children's educations, and this creates a significant stress for Frank. This heightened the issues while Frank is during his long working hours. Tina was feeling very lonely and disconnected to the family, which has put a strain to their marriage. And moving on would be the cultural issues. This is the communication style in Japan, which I mentioned previously. They practice the indirect communications. This can be seen when Frank pushes to get more specific information, but he only get the vague answers from his colleagues. And the cultural integration. So to encounter the language barriers, about the Frank is actively learning more about the Japanese culture, engaging more informal language, and establishing more personal relationships with his colleagues. Superstitions and beliefs. This can be seen in the companies where the Japanese staff is believe in the curses and the evil spirits, and this is a cultural challenge faced by Frank. The Japanese managers suggested to bring the local press to pray for the workers and also to ward off any evil forces, as during the period they faces some incidents and accidents. And next would be the leadership issues. At first, Frank encountered the conflict of cultural paradigms, which includes the inability to discern the subtlety and vagueness of the Japanese communication. So this eventually had led to the problems of conflict when it was time to address the difference between the Japanese methods of management and the US management. Frank was used to a more direct decision-making style in the United States, which is etched in the more rigid hierarchical and consensus-oriented style of Japan. Next, I'll pass to Rachel.
Thank you, Lian. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'll talk about the 4 stages of the EAP model experienced by Frank and his family throughout their joint venture in Japan. Next slide, please. So the first stage is the pre-departure preparation. It involves push and pull factors that affect Frank's initial experience in Japan. The pull factors that motivate Frank to join venture in Japan include career advancement. In fact, the biggest pull factor for Frank was the chance to become the senior executive for Asia Pacific region, which was a significant promotion promised by Tim Fox, which was his supervisor. The next pull factor is the overall experience, as having a chance to lead a joint venture in Japan likely appealed to Frank's sense of adventure and his desire for a new challenge. Going on to the push factors that motivate Frank. Okay, moving on to the push factors that motivate Frank to leave USA. Okay, moving on to the push factors that motivate Frank to leave USA include the lack of challenge in his current role. Frank may have felt that his current role in his USA is predictable and stagnant without any room to develop his career. This pushes him to accept the deal for a new leadership challenge in Japan. Another push factor was the desire for change. The chance to live and work in a completely new cultural environment potentially shows Frank to yearn for a change from his life in USA. This can be seen during a scene in which he told his wife Tina about his expatriation plan to Japan, and he was shocked by her lukewarm response, as he was the only one between both of them who might be somewhat unsatisfied working in the same company, country, and culture for years. Moving on to the second stage, which is the initial experience. In this stage, the joint venture seems like an exciting adventure in Frank's POV. This is also the stage in which expatriates are commonly known to be infatuated with the culture and people in new surroundings. Sadly for Frank and his family, this honeymoon phase does not last long. Frank's initial optimism during the first few weeks can be seen when he was having a friendly and warm working relationship as well as agreement on strategies with X&M company. However, that quickly turned sour and soon they were bombarded with culture shock. Frank was upset and frustrated on 2 things, which was the passive and indirect communication styles of Japanese colleagues and their reluctance to admit minor problems. His wife Tina also struggled with heavy culture shock too, including difficulties in finding familiar products, language barrier, and feeling isolated due to the lack of social connection. As a result, Tina's bad experience were likely to impact Frank in the long run. The third stage will be gestation. This stage highlights the feelings of anger, frustration, and resentment endured by Frank and Tina, who were both trying to adapt to Japanese culture that clashes with USA culture. Frank continued to struggle with the indirect communication from Japanese colleagues in the gestation stage. To him, the idea of praying to ward off evil spirits, as suggested by Japanese staff, was an impractical and foolish way to increase safety measures. Meanwhile, Tina struggles with it and continued to Europe and high-quality beef were scarce and overpriced in Japan. So the feeling of constantly being misunderstood and alienated by everyone and everything all at once overwhelms and exhausts her. So all these issues in the gestation stage potentially contributed to Frank's overall sense of frustration. Then the last stage would be adjustment. In this stage, Frank tries his best to adapt to Japan to feel more familiar and comfortable. So firstly, Frank decided to make some efforts to adjust through various ways, through arranging lunch discussions and holding birthday parties to connect with Japanese staff. And he also uses a more informal communication approach to improve the strained relationship with Japanese staff. There is not much progress, but it eventually improved a lot after he received help from Jean and George, which was his old classmate and his old classmate Frank. As for Tina, Frank hired a Japanese tutor for Tina to overcome the language barrier. So eventually Tina got a job as an English lecturer thanks to Jean's help. The things were overall better and there were no more evil spirits and ongoing issues. That's all for my part. I'll pass it to you.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. So now we move on to question 4, which is based on your analysis, was the expatriate assignment successful or not, and what were the main findings? So based on our analysis, we can say it was a success thanks to Frank's friend Jim that actually encouraged him to stay on and adapt to Japanese culture. First and foremost, his adaptation to Japanese culture was a success. He made efforts to learn regarding how Japanese do their stuff, their beliefs, their holidays, even their TV shows. And he actually engaged with his local staff to create a very healthy work relationship that has caused several positive outcomes. Firstly, is successful internal communication. He could actually communicate better with his local staff. He actually understands on how to approach them properly, which has led to acceptance of new policies and strategies that was firstly suggested for him, but there was no positive response. But after learning regarding Japanese culture, he managed to make the policies and strategies implemented by the joint venture that has increased in profit for the joint venture. And his success can actually be measured when he was offered a promotion to become HWZ Asia Pacific Executive. It was actually a milestone for Frank's career development. Next, we will move on to successful family adjustment and adaptation. He actually helped his family on encouraging them how to adapt to the new environment. When Tina actually got a job thanks to Jim's wife, and she made new friends, so she did not feel that lonely or as an outcast in the new environment. Therefore, she also spent the time traveling with her new friends and increased her emotional stability. As for their children, they received superior education compared to how they actually received education in the United States. And they finally learned how to speak Japanese, they made more friends, and they were happily staying in Japan throughout the years, and nobody was actually complaining. Therefore, the expatriate can consider as a success in all of these factors. And now we move on to question 5.
Based on the main issue identified, I have some recommend to the expatriate and organization. In financial issues, recommendation for the organization first is salary adjustment. The company can offer a competitive salary adjustment based on international
why the explanation about why it was successful also was very good. Okay, these two steps are the main major part of the assignment. Okay, so thank you so much. Yeah, so group 4, right? Group 3, right? Group 3 will be asking questions. Where is group 3? Yes, yeah, please do so.
How did Frank McDougall manage to navigate the cultural difference and communication challenge in his role as the managing director of the joint venture in Japan?
So how he actually navigated cultural differences and communication challenges was through cultural adaptation. He actually immersed himself into the Japanese culture on how he should actually approach local staff. And also his personal engagement plays a very important role, as he went out for lunch to communicate with his staff and he learns more. Therefore, he builds a very strong communication line between them.
Next.
What were the key factors that contribute to successful adaptation of Frank McDougall's family to the new cultural environment in Japan, and how this factor impacts his professional performance?
Sorry, can you repeat? I cannot hear well. Can you louder, please?
What were the key factors that contribute to the successful adaptation of Frank McDougall's family to the new cultural environment in Japan, and how did this factor impact his professional performance?
The main factor is cultural integration. He integrates himself into the Japanese culture and he also taught his family and he helped his family out to adapt to the new environment. Therefore, when he has a happy family, he is stress-free at home and he can focus more on developing the company, which has led him to receive a promotion to become the regional director.
Okay, yeah, that was good answer. Yeah, so only one more comment is the earlier slide. I think 4 or 5 of you joined up combine the slides, right, with the different background colors, right? So I think earlier slides need to change color to make it more visible. Some of the work, the font color and background must match. So if you choose the dark background, you should choose lighter font color. So you have to adjust that a bit, especially the blue color one. I saw you are using both blue and the white, right? Yeah, this one is difficult for me to see the words. And also the earlier slide, too much. This one also I think maybe you can make it more like bullet points, because the PowerPoint you shouldn't write too wordy. So you can make it into shorter sentence in bullet points, but you have to write more like this in your assignment, okay? In your report, you have to write detail. But for the PowerPoint, you can shorten it, okay? Yeah, so that's all from me. So thank you so much, everyone. Good job.